So if you haven't got lots of digital platforms in which to watch things on, do not worry, because we've got everything available to you on Freeview. So we're going to kick off with your Saturday night. The thing to kick off your weekend is going to be Time Cop on Sony Movies, 9 p.m. Please tell me this is something you grew up watching, Van.
Oh, I loved Time Cop when I was a kid. Just the opening sequence when you've got the old-timey prospectors and they're being like raided by a dude with Uzis, like laser-sighted Uzis. That is great to me. I'm a fan of this in general. I think I told Paul Ross recently that I consider Time Cop to be the last great Van Damme movie. Because it directly follows, I think a year earlier we had Hard Target, which is the Van Damme movie, and then there's, I think, this in second place. Where Van Damme's career would go from this is just unfortunately tragic, because I think he just stopped trying when it came to the script.
It's the Coors Beer, isn't it? Straight after this.
So
I was wondering when he started making snow angels in the mountains. It probably was straight after Time Cop. I really enjoyed this film. I think, again, I'm kind of rebuilding or revisiting my back catalogue of, those old school movies that from the 90s, like early 90s through to the end of that kind of decade that really kind of don't age.
1994, I think this was an adaptation of a Dark Horse comic, stars Van Damme as Kit Walker, a widowed time cop who's literally sent to police time, all of which apparently starts because someone stole one prototype. Now, bear in mind, they did turn that into a TV series a couple of years ago called Timeless as well, so one prototype can apparently cause a problem. Van Damme goes back in time to thwart the efforts of a maniacal senator who is trying to manipulate the timeline so that he can claim the White House. And his justifications might sound eerily familiar in 2020.
Give me the envelope.
Thank you. The country's going down the drain because of the special interests. We need someone in the White House who's so rich, doesn't have to listen to anybody.
What's that?
The senator was having a fundraiser.
When I'm in office, it's going to be like the 80s again. Top 10% will get richer. The other 90% can emigrate to Mexico where they can live a better life. So, Agent Walker, you're going or staying?
I think you planned too far ahead.
Obviously you don't.
Ron Silver there as, let's just say, proto-Trump. Worthwhile, wouldn't you say? Did we say this was Sony Movies?
Yeah, this is on Sony Movies. This is 9 p.m. A really nice time, actually, to kick off your Saturday night, because it's not too late, but it's kind of, you can get sort of the older kids who you want to introduce to this to kind of watch it with you as well. So it's a really nice one. So yeah, that's your Saturday night sorted. Moving straight on to Sunday. It's going to be fast. It's going to be furious. It is Rush on Film 4 at 11.
You mean it's not a Fast and Furious film after that build-up?
Well, I know, sorry to disappoint people, but it does, I mean, it's got a heartthrob in it. If The Rock or Vin Diesel or whoever is not one of your key kind of, focus points, let's move over to Chris Hemsworth instead, playing James Hunt.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
It's a good alter option.
Because it's about that casting. It's about the relationship between James Hunt and Niki Lauda. And, of course, Hunt is played by Hemsworth with that wonderful faux British Australian accent that he does. And Niki Lauda, as played here by Daniel Bruhl. And this is the role, I think, that really shot Daniel Bruhl into the mainstream. I think he directly got the bad guy role in Captain America Civil War out of this movie. I think that was the thing that happened.
Yeah.
My name is Niki Lauda, and racing people know me for two things. The first is my rivalry with him.
Basta usa slicks. Lo vuoi cambiare anche tu?
What about Hunt? Has he changed?
No, he's going on wets.
I don't know why it became such a big thing. We were just drivers, busting each other's balls. To me, this is perfectly normal, but other people saw it differently. That whatever it was between us went deeper.
And I love, the idea behind this movie, the concept of, I suppose our generation missed the whole kind of James Hunt phenomenon that was happening, and that rivalry with Niki Lauda as well. So it's really great to look back on what happened between the motor racing season. And it's one of those watches that I think is, it's a character study as much as it is the action and adventure as well.
And of course, Daniel Bruhl absolutely nails it as Lauda. I'd say he fares better, I think, than Hemsworth as Hunt. Hunt's very, he plays it very well and everything, but I think it is more Lauda's story than it is James Hunt's.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, do you know what? I have to say, I'm not I'm not a big fan of motor racing, just generally. It doesn't interest me to watch it as a sport on TV. But watching this movie, you know, there are other great motor racing movies that when you capture that kind of adrenaline, excitement and rivalry, it actually gets you so excited about it. And I think Rush is one of those movies in which you really get that kind of adrenaline rush feeling as you're watching it through. Because it's a true story as well. This stuff happened. Yeah. It's amazing.
Directed by Ron Howard as well, worth noting every time. And I believe the script, because I think I attended a Q&A with him when this was out, is by Peter Morgan, you know, prestige writer.
The great Peter Morgan. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's amazing. I mean, I can't remember how this fared kind of on awards season, but it certainly did well at the box office, and I think there was a lot of fans that enjoyed this. So it was out in 2013. If you haven't seen it when it came out in the cinemas, it's a good film to watch. So you can catch that again Sunday night, Film 4, 11:05 p.m.
Perfect. And should we go a little more comedic for Mondays? I've got one of my all-time favourite comedies to go. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I'm a very big Nick Hornby fan. It's just one of those.
Oh, okay.
One of those defining things about my sense of humour is I really love the work of Nick Hornby. I was so disappointed to see the what was the one where they're trying to commit suicide. They made it a few years ago with Aaron Paul and Imogen Poots and Pierce Brosnan. It was terrible adaptation. But I am, however, a very big fan of High Fidelity and more specifically About a Boy, which is on 5 Star on Monday night at 9 p.m. The story of Will Freeman, Free Man. A man who doesn't believe in commitment, who doesn't believe in marriage and kids, who simply wants to enjoy his life. His father left him the royalty rights to a hit Christmas song, so he never has to worry about working again. He never has to worry about appeasing the women in his life because, frankly, he's not going to keep them around long enough. And he has somewhat of a laissez-faire attitude to anything really long-term.
How would you like to be Imogen's godfather?
Seriously?
Seriously.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I'm really, really touched, but, you must be joking. I couldn't possibly think of a worse godfather for Imogen. You know what I'm like, I'll drop her on her head at her christening. I'll forget all her birthdays until her 18th when I'll take her out and get her drunk and possibly, let's face it, you know, try and her.
Well, no, I just thought you had hidden depths, Will.
Oh, no, you've always had that wrong. I really am this shallow.
And that's why you would never ask me to be a godparent as well. So, but of course the whole thing is Nicholas Hoult in this, because he's the little boy who comes into his life and they sort of become friends, and that's the shtick, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll never forget when they sing Killing Me Softly at the piano. It's just so painfully funny to watch. But there's so many great elements about this movie. Toni Collette in it is fantastic as the young boy's mother in this. We've got Hugh Grant is brilliant as the grumpy man that never has to work a day in his life and he gives zero whatevers about anything really. Yeah. And to be honest, you know, I think when you come out of seeing Hugh Grant in that kind of time frame playing those romantic leads, those kind of jolly rom-com,
because it was quite subversive.
Yeah, it really was, and I think it was really good to show his diversity as an actor in this as well. Classic moments, also lovely little parts for Rachel Weisz in here as well. So there's a really good collection of actors doing really good stuff on this. A great debut from Nicholas Hoult, and I really enjoyed it. I have to say, I was actually working in telly at the time when this came out, and was lucky enough to meet all of the cast as they came in. So Nicholas Hoult, when he was barely up to my knees, I met, and now look at him now. I'm so proud. But that is About a Boy. That is on Monday, 5 Star, 9 o'clock. If you haven't seen it before, go and check it out. It's one of those ones that give you those nice, like, warm, fuzzy feelings inside.
Indeed.
And we're back again with more movies on TV for you guys to enjoy. So we've got the second half of the week coming up for you right now, kicking off with your Tuesday pick, which is a Wes Anderson classic, and actually something that opened him up to an even wider audience. It is, of course, the Grand Budapest Hotel on Film 4 at 9 p.m. Van, did you enjoy this movie?
I absolutely love the Grand Budapest Hotel. It is hands down my favourite of the Wes Anderson films. This and Rushmore, I believe, I would say my favourites. I also quite like Isle of Dogs. Wes Anderson has been in the sort of topical realm this week because a young lady on TikTok has produced a video, the Wes Anderson Guide to Lockdown. And it's just an instruction video for lockdown created in the style of a Wes Anderson film.
Amazing.
And it owes a great debt specifically to the Grand Budapest Hotel. So if you've seen that video and you don't quite get it, you've got to watch this movie first, which is, of course, this is the story of, is it Monsieur Gustave, I believe?
Yes.
He's the concierge of the Grand Budapest Hotel. He's played by Ray Fiennes. He forms a friendship with a new lobby boy named Zero, and the pair embark on an adventure that sees them put in prison, having to break out, and just this great World War II era European romp in the very unique, singular style of Wes Anderson. But of course, my favourite bit in it is, other than Ray Fiennes' brilliant comedic run from the police, is none other than the job interview.
You're now going to be officially interviewed.
Should I go and light the candle first, sir?
What? No. Experience.
Hotel Kinski, kitchen boy, 6 months. Hotel Berlitz, mop and broom boy, 3 months. Before that, I was a skillet scrubber.
Experience, 0.
Thank you again, Mr. Gustav.
Straighten that cap, Anatole. The pleasure's mine, Herr Schneider.
The stress busters.
These are not acceptable.
I fully agree.
Education.
I studied reading and spelling. I started my primary school. I almost finished.
Education, 0.
Now it's exploded.
Good morning, Cicero. Call the goddamn plumber.
This afternoon, Monsieur Gustav.
Will that fail, Frau Liebling?
What on hell is this?
Not now. Family.
0.
I'm a very big fan of this movie. I think it's a really great flick.
Yeah, I have to agree. I struggled with Wes Anderson on certain things. Like I didn't like the Royal Tenenbaums, Life Aquatic, stuff like that didn't really work for me. And I went to go and watch this on a whim and thought, oh, it might be quite interesting. And I have to say, I just fell in love with that because I think the colours, visually, the kind of stop motion feel to the live action is amazing within it. And Ray Fiennes doing comedy. He needs to do more comedy.
He really
He's
does.
Brilliant at it. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different elements. The thing that he does really well, apart from obviously the visuals, is Wes Anderson can bring a fantastic cast of actors together.
Oh, God, yeah.
To really make them work in a way that you don't expect. And with that in mind, like Tilda Swinton, people like that who are quirky, just bring that additional quirkiness to them. And for me, I think that's what really works well in this. It's colourful, it's funny, it's fun, it's well acted, and it's so Wes Anderson. Whether or not you are a fan of his work or not, this is the movie that I think almost becomes the most commercial movie for Wes Anderson.
It's funny you say about the cast, and yes, I absolutely agree. This is, I think, the commercial one for Wes Anderson. But I couldn't remember. It was Tony Revolori from Spider-Man who plays Zero. But like you say about the cast, because nobody could remember this list of names. This is an absolutely epic list. There's too many to remember. So F. Murray Abraham, Matthew Amalric, Adrian Brody, Willem Dafoe, Jeff Goldblum, Harvey Keitel, Jude Law, Edward Norton, Bill Murray, Saoirse Ronan, Léa Seydoux, Tom Wilkinson, Owen Wilson, Tilda Swinton, Jason Schwartzman. That's a hell of a... Fisher Stevens turns up in this. Emma Fisher Stevens.
Yeah. And you're also, what you're seeing as well as a trend in kind of the same actors reappearing in Wes Anderson. So Adrian Brody, his troupe, Tilda Swinton, Ed Norton to an extent as well. But also, I just think Saoirse Ronan is cropping up. She's in the latest Wes Anderson movie as well. And I just think, seeing them again, the calibre of acting that you're going to get from this and the style. And so if you haven't seen a Wes Anderson film before, this is the one to check out. It's on Tuesday, Film 4, 9 p.m. Make sure you watch it. Now, let's get dark, let's get deep, let's get into that kind of mindset of Donnie Brasco. So this is the Sony Movies, 11:05 p.m. on Wednesday. I mean, this is a film that I think all of us will have watched at least once or twice
I've watched
in our
it
lifetime.
Way more than twice. I love me some Donnie Brasco. Interesting thing, did you know that Donnie Brasco is directed by Mike Newell, who directed 4 Weddings and a Funeral?
What?
That is
I did not know that.
Absolutely true. So Donnie Brasco, which is, I think, based on a true story, is about an undercover FBI agent named Joe Pistone, who's played by Johnny Depp. This is back when Johnny Depp was the most interesting actor in the world. So otherwise known as the 90s. Before he sold out and started making goddamn theme park movies.
1997 to be exact.
Yes, it was. He goes undercover as sort of the best friend to a sort of faded, reasonably upper mid-level, but otherwise sort of parodied and not taken very seriously mobster known as Lefty, who's played by Al Pacino in full mode. And of course, it's the friendship between the two that grows more and more intertwined. They become closer and closer as the years go by. And of course, it all starts to take a toll on Joe's marriage, his relationship with his wife, his children, who he gets to see less and less as his mob life becomes more and more high profile. He starts to ascend through the ranks. It's a classic. There's so many great lines in this. I mean, I'm still quoting this film to this day.
Yeah, and also it's got one of my favourite actresses kind of from the 90s in it, Anne Hesh, who I just think is so strong in everything she does. It also has a great supporting cast as well, with Michael Madsen in there. People that you don't expect to pop up. It kind of turns the mob genre a little bit on its head. It makes it more interesting to watch, because I think around that time and kind of late 80s into the 90s, you've got loads of these kind of mob movies, and to really kind of sort of do something a little bit different is the only way that you're going to kind of have that iconic kind of feel to it, and this does that for sure. And you can still revisit this, like we mentioned earlier. It was made in 1997. I don't feel like it's dated at all,
because it's a period piece already anyway. So I think it's set in the late 70s and early 80s, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the thing is that again, it's one of those movies where if you love Johnny Depp and you kind of go, where has that man gone in recent years?
Oh God, I know.
Go back to his back catalogue. Go and watch him in his roles like Donnie Brasco here. You'll see him kind of just at his absolute best and shine. So this week is great.
I'm thinking all that, incidentally, about Al Pacino in this movie as well, because he's brilliant in this. It's like, why does God carry his money in a wallet? Why does God carry his money in a roll? You know, I love all that. But yeah, so that's Sony Movies. It's 11:05 on Wednesday night. That's a good midweek movie, Donnie Brasco, I think. A really great one.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, something for, I suppose, a slightly older audience, which is a slower film, enjoyable to an extent, I think, and an easy film to watch, is on Thursday. It's on Film 4 at 9:00. It's called A Walk in the Woods, and I'm really pleased that I managed to pronounce this trail correctly. The Appalachian Trail is what it's based around.
So I think I think it's based on a non-fiction book by Bill Bryson. And my ex-girlfriend's uncle was really into this, into the work of Bill Bryson. So I remember him telling me a lot about this. And obviously I saw the film and he was very excited about it. It stars Robert Redford as a fictionalised take on Bill Bryson, who decides he wants to walk the Appalachian Trail, and he teams up with a sort of estranged lifelong friend, played by grizzled old Nick Nolte, to go with him. And of course, you can imagine that you've got Bill Bryson, the erudite, sophisticated man. You've got Nick Nolte, the grizzly man. And I'll tell you what, just to prove that I'm absolutely doing that impression justice, have a listen.
Are we hiking or strolling?
What, is this a race?
I'm trying to do 11 miles.
Slow and steady, pal. You want to burn out your legs? Go ahead. Oh,
It'd be nice to get there before midnight.
yeah, well, that would be nice. Go ahead, help yourselves. Oh, jeez.
Jeez. He's the man you hire when you want to out-grizzle Tommy Lee Jones. And that's how it works.
Yeah, that's all right. And I love the kind of chalk and cheese factor to the pair of them, because I think that's what... It would be a very dull movie if it didn't have that to it. So if you're a fan of Robert Redford, you're a fan of Nick Nolte, but you've never seen them how they could possibly work together, this is kind of the way to do it. And it's a gentle movie. It's a
funny.
movie
it's very funny.
It is funny, but it's like chuckle funny as opposed to belly laughs funny. It's not slapstick in any way, but it's interesting to think that watching a guy want to walk an incredibly famous trail in the US and something that probably is just basically set in the woods is actually interesting enough to watch. And that's why I said at the beginning, you'll enjoy this to an extent, because it's not going to be for everyone. I feel like it's an older generation movie in some respects.
Was it the Appalachian Trail that Reese Witherspoon went down in the movie Wild as well?
Yeah,
was that the same one?
I have a feeling that is. I don't quote me on that, but I do feel like it is. It's a very, very famous trail. Lots of people like to walk it.
Okay, so last one for the week then, because Friday night's the night to party, and there's only one movie I go to every time I want to get my rocks off, and that's, of course, none other than Van Wilder, Party Liaison, which is showing at 11 o'clock Friday night on 5 Star. I adore this movie. We've talked about it once or twice in the past. Van Wilder, the 7-year senior, as he refers to himself, who has been cut off by his father and now has to actually earn money to stay in his beloved college and graduate, while simultaneously being interviewed by an overzealous university reporter played by Tara Reid, because this movie is so old that Tara Reid still had credibility. And you know what? Here's some Ryan Reynolds.
All right. Hey, Gwen, all right. You're just in time. Take your clothes off.
I'm not taking off my clothes.
Well, it is the naked mile run. Everybody else is in their birthday suits. Except that guy.
I have a few questions for you.
In time, this is gonna be fun. You know that three-letter word starts with F?
So you're quite the campus man, heading events like the Jaeger Olympics.
Oh, yes. Well, you know, you haven't lived until you've shot but it's blitzed on Jaeger. Heine?
This was a really bad idea. I'm leaving.
Hey, are we gonna reschedule or what?
He's so charming, that Van Wilder, isn't he?
Do you know what? We had a Van Wilder at our university. He just wasn't looking like Ryan Reynolds. But he was that guy. He was that guy who never left. He was there 5 years too long for what he should have been. Yeah, I know. And it's there's like that kind of feeling where you're like, yeah, this guy knows everything and he's like the coolest guy. But then actually you're like, oh my God, that's so sad.
I think that's
Why can't you just leave?
I think that's how my uni actually got lecturers. They were just students who hadn't left. But anyway, that's enough about Sheffield Helm. Beside the point. This movie, great fun. Big fan of Cal Penn in there. Colossus, the bulldog. There's of course, an iconic sequence involving chocolate eclairs that will haunt me until the day I die. And I'm still, I'll be honest with you, I've worked on it with therapists, and I'm still not quite over how much I fancied Tara Reid in this film when it came out. Still kind of do.
Well, it was in her. She was at her peak.
She was.
This is like.
She was at her peak.
Yeah,
this was before the pepperoni. That's what that was. But
there we go.
Yeah. So long time ago, but it's still a very funny movie. It still holds up as well. Actually, it's still pretty damn funny even by today's standards. It's not like American Pie where you watch it and you think, "Ooh, that's problematic now."
No, that could never be made now.
No, definitely.
Yeah, again, I love it when a movie doesn't age and people still keep it alive with its legacy because we're still enjoying it as much as we did before, and you can probably introduce this to new people as well. So it rounds off a pretty solid week of movies on TV. I mean, have you got a big pick that you think is one definitely worth watching across the whole week?
I mean, Van Wilder for me every time. I'll always watch Van Wilder. I watch hell, I'll stop this. I'll watch Van Wilder right now. But a movie so great that it's just an offhand bonus thing that it gave the world Sophia Bush as well.
Nice.